Well, good morning, and I think it's there. There we are. Good. Is it on? Awesome. I find it so great to show up at places and other people actually show up too. So thank you for coming. It's weird to imagine just being here all by myself, and I want you to know how encouraging it is to find you guys connecting with one another and finding that space to be here, and to trust that God will meet you here wherever you may be, and that we will make our way forward. So we're going to look this morning at Philippians chapter 2, and we're going to look actually at verses 12 to 18. The bulletin's a little off. And we're also going to tag into that Micah chapter 6, verse 8, which is arguably one of my favorite verses to touch on. So I want you to think about this for a moment, and you can turn to a partner or a friend or someone you didn't drive here with, or just talk to yourself, however that may be. And I would love for you to come up with a definition, or actually maybe let's do this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would your parents, and some of you, you're going to have to think back a ways, but how would your parents have rated you on your obedience? Were you an obedient person, okay? And then tag into that, why or why weren't you, all right? What is it that kept you from being an obedient kid, or what was it that made you really obedient and fall into line all the time, okay? So I'm going to give you about a minute or two to do that, and we'll dive into what it means to be obedient to God, and that'll create some tension, I would imagine, which is always good. All right, so go ahead. You have about a minute. Turn to somebody. Awesome. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There are significant moments in our lives that stand out to us. When my wife and I got married in 1993, we had this idea that we would go off to graduate school. And as we thought about where to go, we ended up landing on going up to Vancouver, BC to Regent College. And that's part of University of British Columbia. And we were going to study some theology there and kind of sort out what we wanted to do and be in our lives. And it was a really rich time. One of the things that's challenging about moving to a foreign country is figuring out how you're going to work. So along we figured, or were given a gift to be a nanny. We were nannies together. Manny, I don't mean anything badly by this, by the way. Where are you, Manny? I saw Manny earlier. There. I was a Manny and Dina was a nanny. That's how we like to think of ourselves. And we took care of, we lived in a basement suite, an apartment of a professor from Regent College. And they had children that we would watch in the afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m., give or take. And so Elsa and Andrew, they were about 4 and 2, and then there was another one on the way, but those two were our responsibility, and we would kind of tag team back and forth, and I would take them down to the swings, and we'd swing for an hour, blah, blah, blah. At 6 o'clock, it was time to deliver them back. They were going back to Craig and Julie, and we would get on with our just married life of not having children, which was really fun at the time. And we're almost to that point again, which is, I don't know if we don't think it's quite as fun. We're missing our kids a little bit. So, but that's a sidebar. So at 6 o'clock, off they'd go, and we'd go back to doing our thing. Well, a ways into our time at Regent, we thought, hey, it'd be great to start our own family. So we had Eli at the end of our second year at Regent, and he was born after a hot summer, June 19th. Dina nudged me in the middle of the night, and she said, I think this is it. We scurried. We were like, okay, here we go. And 27 hours later, he arrives. It was Canada, for those who have not been up there for their healthcare system, it's pretty awesome. But whatever you've heard about it, it's not true. It was great. We had a great experience. The birth was a little bit challenging. It was time to recuperate, so they said, Dina, you can stay here for 4 days. It was like, awesome. So she stayed in the hospital and took care of Eli. I'd go home, I'd sleep a little bit, and think about all the responsibility of having a child. And then on that 4th day, I came back to the hospital to bring us home. And we had a little Toyota Corolla wagon, and we walked out with our, the car seat carrier thing, and put it in the car really gently and strapped it in and made sure everything was just right. And then we drove out of the parking lot so slow, super cautious, very alert, like the best driving I have ever done in my life. There was this new responsibility. When you come to Jesus, when you have that moment when you say, I do believe that there is a God, and this God loved me so much that he would send his son, Jesus Christ, to this world to heal my brokenness, to meet me in my absolute despair, and to heal me. It is in that moment that you recognize that you are connected to God. And God connected to you. And in that, there is a whole new responsibility. And that responsibility then plays out in obedience. And it's not the most fun word. I'm a school teacher most of the time. I do this as a side thing, if you will. I teach 6th and 7th grade down in Conway, and I have a great time. And one of the things that I'm really good at in being a teacher is classroom management. I am a 10 out of 10 on classroom management. When it comes to actually teaching subject material, I'm okay. I mean, I can get it across, but I can keep a group of 11 and 12-year-olds just fine. I mean, if I'm at the front, I snap my finger, they are with me. And if somebody's not, I just give them the stink eye, and they get it real quick. I just have to put a gentle touch on somebody's shoulder. They're quiet. It's what it is. Obedience in the classroom is great. But I think probably part of that obedience comes from a connectedness to me. Like they trust me. They have this sense of it's going to be okay. We're going to learn something today. So there's this place where they connect in. I believe that is true for us as well, that God is that gentle, very strong presence in our life that invites us to be obedient. I don't think God is going to come up and hit us upside the head. I believe that God is present and puts that hand on our shoulder and says, I'm here with you. And so in that, then, we're invited to obey and to move forward. Let me read our text this morning. It comes from Philippians chapter 2, verse 12 to 18. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. Do everything without grumbling and arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. And then I will be able to boast on the day of Christ that I did not run or labor in vain. But even if I am being poured out like a drink offering on the sacrifice, and service coming from your faith. I am glad and rejoice with all of you. So you too should be glad and rejoice with me. So obedience in light of fear and trembling. Fear and trembling is an odd thing. I don't know if you've seen the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's the Willy Wonka with, my favorite was with Gene Wilder. They made a new one, but they get the golden ticket. It is this wonderful moment that he sees it and he's gonna go to the chocolate factory. And as he goes, Charlie is a little bit nervous, as I recall. And when he meets Willy Wonka, it is this awe-inspiring moment. This is the guy. And as the movie goes along, hopefully I'm not giving it away. If you haven't, you're going to get there. But it's pretty old. I don't feel too badly about giving it away. At the end, Charlie is given responsibility. It is in that moment that Charlie kind of is like, I'm not sure if I can do this. It's that fear and trembling. Do you sometimes feel that way about your Christian life, that Christ-following life, that God-inspired life where you come face to face with God, or a nudge or a moment where you're just like, what is going on? And God says to you, will you follow me? Can you obey? And you're like, I want to, but it's a lot. However far away you are from God right now, or have been, you are never too far away from God. No matter how far away your loved ones are, your children or your grandchildren, and you're like, gosh, I wish they would be connected to God. They are not too far away. And it is in that fear and trembling, which I heard this morning in our prayers. Thank you, Andrea, for leading us in that. That when people here spoke out their prayers, it was not that you're afraid of God, but that you come to God with this sense of, yes, I trust that you can do this. But when you are in the presence of something, I don't want to make God into a man or a woman or anything other than that God is God. Sometimes when you're in the presence of something so hard to even describe, we find ourselves going, whoa. God would ask me too? So then what's God asking you to do? And I'm not a big fan of to-do lists, at least not from God. I like to-do lists like, okay, I'm going to clean out the car and I'm going to make my bed and I'm going to, I make to-do lists for my children a lot. I especially like doing that. But a to-do list from God can feel like, wait a second, I want to be my own person. Don't tell me what to do. And certainly, some of you have only known me for a couple of months. Some of you maybe have only seen me for the first time today, and you're like, that clown up there is not going to tell me what to do. Hey, that's okay. Have at it. My sense is, though, that when Scripture is brought forward, and that can lead you to say, well, I don't even believe that whole thing is really for me. And that, again, is between you and God. I'm not going to sit down and have a cup of coffee and tell you, you have to do this or that. I think when you open up Scripture, and this is why one of the reasons I love the Evangelical Covenant Church, which I did not grow up in, is that there is a deep desire to be people of this book. And you may say to yourself, well, that sounds nice for you, but don't push it on me. Well, I'm not going to push. I'm just going to lay it in front of you and allow you to do with it as you will. So in Micah chapter 6, it's an Old Testament text. It is arguably one of the best known Old Testament texts there is. It's from the Jewish scripture. And it says this: "What is it that you require of me, O God? It is to walk, to do justly, to love mercy, and to be humble." What is it that you would require? Ever had to meet some requirements for anything? When those requirements come up, they can be hard to sometimes match up. Justice is a funny word, and our culture has, in a sense, grabbed hold of it, and it's become a stick almost that gets people really riled up. But it's not a cultural word, not at least how Micah uses it. For Micah, he uses a Hebrew word which is that says it's called mishpat. That is to practice the requirements of God's laws as they relate to other people. This means to actually practice that we are to give back to people what is their due, to deliver the downtrodden and the oppressed, and to focus upon what is ethical and relational. How is it that we are fostering relationship with one another? Where do our relationships break down? Is it racial? Is it gender? Is it old and young? Is it socioeconomic? What I like about this room right here is that I have no idea who's wealthy in here and who's poor. What I do know is that you show up here and we are connected because of God. When you interact this week and go about your business at the co-op or at Walmart, or you're at Home Depot, or you're at a school, we don't walk around with, I'm this and you're that. What Mishpat says is that we are all children of God, created in the image of God. That person you hate, that person you despise, that person you just want to punch in the throat, that person was made in God's image. How is it that we can just set that aside when God says to do justly? It's a requirement from God. It's a place of obedience. The other part of it is to love mercy. Those of us who have been on the side of receiving mercy, we are all huge fans. However big a fan you are of whatever sports team, if you are a fan of mercy, those sports teams just fade away in the light of mercy. I can tell you there is, in my life, nothing better than mercy. Nothing. Absolutely. I've had some great times in my life and some good experiences and some successes. But all of those pale in light of mercy. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. I deserved to be set aside. I deserved to be cut off. I deserved to have nothing. And yet, people, they lived out God's mercy into my life. Now, maybe you're thinking, yeah, I don't really need mercy. I'm pretty good. Well, good. I'm happy for you. But there are people like me who are dying to be given a second, a third, a 26th time. Mercy. Love mercy. For those of you who feel a little smug, like I don't need mercy, I just would like to remind you that God has extended mercy to you in the person of Jesus Christ. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Act justly, love mercy. I'm just going to skip some pages. And walk humbly with your God. Did you know that Scripture references poverty 2,100 times? Poverty is an issue for us as the church to address. It is a place of both justice and of mercy, and it is a place of humility. I am not the best at this. I don't stand here going, man, you should see me down at the soup kitchen. You should see me just giving away stuff all the time to meet the needs of those around me. But I'll tell you what, I am convicted when I come to Scripture and I read 2,100 times God addressing the issue of poverty. It is more important to God, perhaps, than anything else. Bono, the lead singer of famous rock band U2, is interested in the poor, and he shines a light on it with this line: God is in the slums, in the cardboard boxes where the poor play house. God is in the silence of the mother who has infected her child with a virus that will end both their lives. God is in the debris of wasted opportunities and lives. I really love the story of Crossroads Covenant Church because it is a church that is founded on, I believe, Micah 6:8 without even knowing it. Maybe you did know it, but it is about having served the needs of the poor. Whether it was the common ground, the thrift store, the basics for babies, the hope of the domestic abuse housing, all of those things said Micah 6:8. But it's important not to get smug, to think, oh, we are all that in a bag of chips. God is working in and through us. I know the microphone died. Somewhere along the line. It was too long. Use the... Walking in humility is that place that will allow us for the next 13 years to be a people of mishpat, to be a people of mercy, of hesed, of loving kindness to those around us. So as we come to communion this morning, be reminded that our obedience, our desire to walk with God is a place of humility. The final thing, Paul says this, that we will shine like stars in the darkness. There is something profound when we act as Christ ambassadors. It shines a light. It's a spotlight. It gives hope to those who are lost in the dark. Light exposes where there is need for transformation. I'll finish with this story. When I was a younger guy, I worked at a camp, and there was a little boy, his name was Andre. He was in 5th grade, and Andre was a funny little guy. He was about, 10, and it was a week-long Bible camp, and he was one of 9 kids in my cabin, and he was deathly afraid of bugs. So all the other cabins would have a light on outside their cabin except for ours. And because Andre wouldn't come close to the cabin if the light was on. The other side of it is, I had a boy in that cabin named John, and John was deathly afraid of the dark. He needed a light. So what we would do is, I would send Andre up there to run inside the cabin so the bugs wouldn't be around the light so he wouldn't see them. He'd get in the cabin, he'd flip on the light, and then John would be able to come up and join us. The light really is an opportunity for us to shine in a way that reminds those around us of justice. Not the way society has used it as a stick, but as a way to be God's hands and feet. That light also draws others to be safe to come to a place like this. So as we come to communion this morning, I've asked Max and Sarah to give our communion to us. And Max will have the bread, and Sarah will have the grape juice. And you'll be able to come forward and to be reminded of your commitment and your responsibility in this relationship with God. You'll be able to dip that bread in the grape juice and say, I will act justly. I will love mercy, and I will be humble in the presence of God. So on the night that Jesus was betrayed, he took bread. He was with his friends, just like this place. And he broke it, and he said, this is my body, which is broken for you. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And he said, share this with each other. Do this as often as you remember me. Likewise, Jesus on that same night took a cup of wine, grape juice, and he said, this is a new covenant, a whole new way of living, a reminder that God had given us mercy when we had deserved something else. And so Sarah will say, this is Christ's blood shed for you, as a reminder that you have been made new. You have been washed white as snow.